Well, my next guest writes, quote, while there are much more important things going on in the world today, the issue over the Epstein files points to a bigger problem for Donald Trump. His stronghold on the MAGA loyalists who now have to decide, did he lie to get their vote or is he covering something up? Well, I want to bring in Maura Gillespie, former press advisor to the former House Speaker, John Boehner. It's nice to have you. Thank you for joining us. What's your take on which one it is?
You know, I think that what we are seeing right now is what Donald Trump does really well. He throws a lot of things at the wall and hopes that one of them will stick. And I think when it comes to MAGA, his base has been largely, undyingly loyal to him. But the problem now is that this Epstein issue, because they campaigned so heavily, because Pam Bondi held up those binders, and so many we'll call them MAGA influencers, said they saw this list, they saw the files, and were excited to just share it and to blow the lid off this thing, as they said. But now where are they? Their silence is deafening. And a lot of their silence over the past week and a half has been orchestrated by the president himself. He reached out to people like Charlie Kirk and others and said, stop talking about this. But what's interesting about the Wall Street Journal most recent developments last night, I don't think that it's going to go away anytime soon. I do agree. But I also think that there are questions that you're also seeing in the MAGA space, because the president was with Rupert Murdoch over the weekend at the FIFA World Cup games. So is there a conversation? He saw this not going away. He saw that he had to play his hand differently. This news from the Wall Street Journal has actually galvanized the MAGA base around him because they have a shared enemy going after the media. So there's a lot more questions, unfortunately, than there are answers here. And the orchestrating that's going on is just something so of entertainment value, but so distracting to the political issues that we have at hand. But this is, again, unfortunately, what we've come to know and come to see from Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, you're making a very good point. Look, let's be quite clear about this. We've had a really strong denial from Donald Trump. But like it or not, certainly this Wall Street Journal reporting has highlighted his ties to Epstein that went way back, of course. No suggestion of anything sort of, bad here from this, I guess there is some suggestion, but this is very much highlighting his ties to Epstein. Right. I just wonder, from your point of view, what the White House and President Trump do next to control this, because this is uncomfortable at best for a White House which is very controlling of its narrative.
Absolutely. And they normally have an answer. And in this situation, they don't, because the real crux of this problem is that they campaigned so heavily on it. And so did they lie to us then that they had something that wasn't there? Or are they actively covering something up? And by covering this up, are they finding all the other distractions to throw at us, to throw some red meat at their MAGA base, hoping that will satiate them enough to drop this? And I don't think that it will, because they don't have an answer. In so many other cases, and let's also remember, Trump tried. He tried denial. He said we have more important things to talk about. That's true, but they made this an issue, so here we are. He then went on to rant about, he went to denial, he went to blame shifting, right? He said that it was Comey and Obama and Hillary Clinton. And then he really went to anyone who believes this stuff is stupid and I don't want your support, you're stupid people. I mean, it really has devolved. And then now you see this latest story trying to get MAGA back to his side. And so I think the White House must be scrambling, just like Republican staffers. I was a Republican staffer, and I can imagine waking up to news like this and just having another headache, because you're trying to figure out, how do we navigate around this and talk about things that matter to our constituents, but also we can't avoid this. They can try, but this story is going to continue to live on. And I will say too, because Republicans are talking about it. If Republicans weren't talking about it at all, and if MAGA wasn't so upset about it, it would probably die out, because it would just be Democrats talking about it, which benefits the president. But because Republicans are talking about it, because so many of his supporters specifically are talking about this, it creates a real problem with the president that he has not experienced. And I worry about what else he'll come out with to try and distract us.
Yeah.
With, we're seeing Pam Bondi now is talking about Alcatraz and talking about that. They're trying to talk about other things, but at the end of the day, they haven't given the transparency that they promised. And I don't think MAGA is going to forget as easily as they hoped.
Well, there is an attempt here, isn't there? So leaning into your experience, your deep experience in how you run a strategy here, and this is crisis comms at this point, right? What we've seen is Donald Trump at least asking Pam Bondi to produce any pertinent grand jury testimony. So if that is, an effort to provide some sort of headline transparency, is this likely to backfire? After all, there's way more to this story than that. There's witness interviews, there's photographs, there's videos. Is that likely to cut it then for the MAGA world? What's your sense?
I don't think it's going to be enough. And I also think that he tailored that message to say pertinent information. Well, what's deemed pertinent and what's deemed, accessible and allowed by the courts? We have unfortunately watched as the Trump administration has really put a heavy hand on the courts. And again, a lot of this, you said, Pam Bondi has the power to do this. And the fact that she's not, it's not about protecting victims. That's not what MAGA world is asking for. They're asking for what was promised to them, and they're not getting it delivered. And I think that that's going to open up a can of worm problem for the White House if more things start to irritate their base and pointing out that they're not feeling the promises kept, promises made, promises kept, that the White House, Trump administration said, we will make sure your grocery prices are lower. We'll make sure your gas is lower. Eggs won't be as expensive. All these things, housing costs are going to go down. And so if you start to tick the boxes, and for those who are conspiracy theorists, and I don't say that as a negative slight, I'm just saying that this is going to be number one, that they feel as though the Trump White House has hid from them. And in this term, they talked about the DOJ, they talked about the Department of Justice being weaponized in past administrations. Well, then what would you say is happening now if they're doing only pertinent? Well, pertinent to who? And then it's all under Pam Bondi's discretion about what she does release and what she asks the court for. And so I do think that will only add more questions and will not quiet as many of the MAGA base as perhaps the president hopes he will. And I think that, those who are in the MAGA space, who have the megaphones, who are on the podcast and speak to them, they're going to feel that pull first and foremost.
Maura, it's good to have you. You're the former press advisor to former House Speaker John Boehner. Apologies for mispronouncing his name. I was going to ask you whether you missed the job, but on a day like this, I think I know the answer. It's good to have you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
President Trump has a medical condition that affects blood flow in his legs. Thank you. It's called